City Council meeting. For public participation, there are 3 ways to submit public comments. 1, submit written comments by the meeting day. 2, submit written comments during the meeting. And 3, attend the meeting in person. 1, to submit written comments by the meeting day, please email cityclerk@dalycity.org and include the public comment in the subject line. All written comments received by 4 p.m. on the meeting day will be provided to the City Council prior to the meeting. Please note, any emailed comments received after 4 p.m. on the meeting date are not guaranteed to be received by the City Council prior to the meeting. Comments are not read aloud into the record. 2, during the meeting, you may visit www.dalycity.org /agendas to submit comments using the public comment form to address the City Council on a specific item or during the public comment period, and such comments are delivered to the City Council and the city staff during the meeting and may be read into the record at the time they are received. And then 3, to speak at the meeting in person, please complete a speaker card located at the entrance of the council chamber and submit to a staff member as early in the meeting as possible. And at this point, may we all raise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Ms. DiGiovanni. Ms. DiGiovanni let me know by email that she is celebrating the observance of Passover. Dr. Rod,
Here.
Ms. Perano,
Here.
Mr. Sylvester,
Glenn Sylvester, present.
Ms. Manalo.
Present. We'll move on to our first item on the agenda, which is the Daly City Age-Friendly Action Plan with Ms. Ann O'Brien and Cynthia Nakayama from the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, CAFE. Welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Manalo, City Council members, City Manager, and members of the public. Also wanted to acknowledge Tony Bayuden, the Chief of Staff for Supervisor David Canepa's office. My name is Cynthia Nakayama. I'm the Deputy Director of Center for Age-Friendly Excellence. I am also joined tonight by Ann O'Brien-Keegaran, who is the Director of the Strategic Alliance for CAFE. I wanted to mention that the action plan, which is 64 pages long, was included with the agenda, and what we're looking at now is a PowerPoint. So you do have access to the action plan. Just as an introduction, the age-friendly movement was developed by the World Health Organization, or WHO, to research and examine the experiences of older people living in urban environments. They wanted to know what the unmet needs were of older adults around the world. And what they realized was that there are 8 main areas where there are unmet needs for older adults. Many of you already are familiar with these domains, but I will list them anyway. Going in order from 1 to 8, it's outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, communication and information, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment, and community support and health services. Just to talk a little bit about the action plan, this is a document that encompasses a 5-year process of assessing and gathering information, interviewing community members, and prioritizing potential projects. This covers focus groups, a town hall, interviews with city staff, and discussions with task force members, as well as a survey that was distributed. This action plan is a roadmap for communities to develop initiatives that make a city a better place to age gracefully, thrive, and be independent. As mentioned, there was a citywide survey that was disseminated to gather input from the unmet needs of older adults in Daly City. This was promoted from January through June of 2023, and 174 surveys were collected.
So I want to preface actually kind of part of the introduction too, is that Daly City is already age-friendly certified, so we took it to the next level in developing the action plan, which is basically kind of the roadmap that you will follow to accomplish the goals that we'll be discussing a little bit later. So we started out with the assessment, and so in compiling this report, we utilized information from the focus groups that were conducted both in 2019 and in 2023. So in 2019, we conducted 5 focus groups, which included a group that consisted of service members, community members, and city staff. And then we also had a group that was consisted of Filipino older adults and 3 others that were represented by 3 different community and living facilities. And that was Lincoln Park Community Center, the PBRC, and then also St. Martin's Church and Hillcrest Gardens. So in November and December of 2023, we conducted also additional 4 focus groups that included service providers and residents from the community centers. And then we also had the opportunity to be able to interview a variety of staff members here in Daly City, because we wanted to make sure that the information that we received from the focus groups was accurate, because sometimes we may have residents that may not be aware of projects that are already in place. So it was basically just to fact check and then also get the feedback from staff in regards to the 3 questions we asked all focus groups. And the 3 questions were, what are the strengths you see in Daly City in relation to the 8 domains that were originally up on the screen? What are the unmet needs in the community related to the 8 domains? And then what are some potential projects that you think that you'd like to would like to see implemented that address those 8 domains? So when we first worked with Daly City, as I said, you were going to get age-friendly certified, the city itself. And at that time, what we did is we put together a project spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, I think there was over, 100 projects, potential projects that we put together, separated by domain. And then we asked the task force to prioritize those projects and what they thought would be maybe the top 3 to 4 projects that you would think would be able to accomplish in 12 months. So the 3 projects were the television monitors that were installed in the community centers with a community channel for older adults with live streaming. And then the city website was revamped, so you have an age-friendly page. An expansive resource guide was established for dissemination to the community, and also to conduct a summit on affordable housing, which is an issue that really affects everyone in the city. And then as previously mentioned, we did multiple focus groups, both in 2019 and 2023. We interviewed staff, and then you had a citywide survey that was utilized. So we gathered all that information together, and that was the information that we utilized to put together the action plan. So Cynthia will start with the domains.
Thank you.
So for the first domain, outdoor spaces and buildings, the goal is to provide a safe and accessible city for all ages to enjoy and utilize. We applied different strategies for each domain And some of the strategies for this domain are to promote pedestrian safety among older adults and enhance safe and appealing neighborhoods in the community, to also promote education around pedestrian safety, and to utilize parks to promote programming and exercise opportunities, and in addition to providing a relaxing atmosphere. Transportation, the goal is to improve mobility options for older adults and enforce traffic safety. Based on our discussions with the task force and older adults, there's a need to encourage various transportation options and educate residents about available transportation resources, such as rideshare, Uber and Lyft. Look for ways to partner with local transportation services, and also to enforce the traffic laws and enhance traffic safety.
The next domain is housing. So the goal is to provide resources to residents to age in place and incorporate policies and projects offering affordable and safe housing. The next few bullets are the strategies that would be utilized. And then in the action plan, when you read the action plan, we take it a step further on how you accomplish those strategies, and then who's going to be responsible for implementing the project. And then we also did a time frame. So at least that we kind of broke it down to 6 months, a year, and then a year to 2 years, and then longer term is beyond that. And like I said, kind of in the project spreadsheet itself, which is Appendix A, there's over 100 projects. We're just bullet pointing a few in each. So in the action plan, we developed some strategies to address housing concerns, conducting workshops that assist residents in signing up for affordable housing at the county level, educate residents about available housing resources, and developing possibly a list of available ADUs or in-law units, and offer workshops on how to educate homeowners on the process of building ADUs. In addition, offer workshops allowing residents to provide feedback on housing issues and also housing policies. The next domain is social participation. The goal is to provide affordable, accessible, and inclusive activities for social isolation, or socialization, sorry. In this, there was a few things that we decided to look into, and that was to expand available programs that already exist and to enhance them. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. If something's working, let's just see how we can improve it, or look at other cities to see what's successful in other cities and implementing those types of ideas in your city. You may also want to consider surveying the residents for activities that they are interested in, and host community in-person and online special events for people to have some contact. Considering there are homebound people that may not be able to drive or have medical conditions, they may not be able to attend those events. We also, in one of the focus groups, want to do research in regards to a magical bridge playground, which we found out that you're already doing. One thing that came up frequently during our focus groups is that people would say you have great special events throughout the year, but they don't have the transportation to get there. So what can you develop in order to make that happen? And ensure communication about activities to make sure that you utilize a variety of materials that use large fonts. Also, partner with high schools to offer tech classes to increase interpersonal connection, and then implement consistent outreach to people at risk of isolation.
So the next domain is communication and information. The goal is to promote information about activities and resources available and accessible using a wide variety of venues and languages. This has been very important since there are many languages spoken in Daly City, as well as the need to do the distribution in different formats, because no matter how much you're distributing your information, people don't necessarily get it. So the strategies included coordinate widespread and regular distribution of information in the same ways that were already mentioned. Also, to increase accessibility to computers, Wi-Fi, and tech classes, and to revamp and expand the city's age-friendly website. Regarding respect and social inclusion, the goal is to have an inclusive environment that acknowledges and serves the diverse population of the city. So it is needed to develop accessible and affordable programs that are sensitive to diverse needs, offer intergenerational activities and events so both young and old can learn from each other, including cultural diversity, and reach out to older adults for their input on decisions that may affect them. So many of the activities address the issue of ageism that many people have pointed out.
Next is civic participation and employment. The goal is to provide older adults opportunities for continued community engagement through volunteer roles or employment, publicize volunteer opportunities using multiple format types and venues. Also, what you can do there is work with the Daly City Partnership, which you already do, recreation services and schools to develop volunteer opportunities for older adults. And also arrange transportation if residents aren't able to drive to those locations. And another way of also addressing that is maybe offering a stipend for gas cards or Clipper cards. The other thing is to keep city leaders informed of the unique needs and perspectives of older adult residents and encourage them to maintain an age-friendly lens when you're developing policies and looking at projects. We do strongly advise that you develop a active adult senior commission and or advisory board with also residents from various geographical areas in Daly City, so we make sure that the whole city is represented. Also work with Peninsula Family Services to place adults through their employment program for older adults. Publish an older adult job opportunities in the Daily Wire and the e-newsletter, and also develop a job employment board. Work with the Chamber of Commerce, and then have residents check CalOps for job postings. Some of this you already have available, but many people just aren't aware that it is available. Next, we have community support and health services. And the goal is to provide services and programs that support the ability of older adults to age in place and with dignity and quality of care. So one of the top strategies is to increase awareness of available resources in San Mateo County. We did talk about the Help at Home book that the county has dropped off at many of the recreation centers in Daly City and various cities throughout the peninsula. They have developed a community resource book that has many resources that are available. And then recently they have actually published a transportation booklet, which we have mentioned during our focus groups. And that's actually published in English and Spanish, and they just released the Chinese translation. So that should be helpful. And that's transportation options throughout the county. We also talked about the importance of having healthcare and dental access. So you may want to consider to have multiple health fitness fairs, partner with Big Smiles to provide low-cost dentistry, and then offer low-cost medical screenings and scam-free services. Finally, we have emergency services, which actually isn't part of the 8 domains, but is a topic that came up frequently through the focus groups, and so we decided to add a domain for Daly City. So the goal is to educate and provide workshops for residents on how they need to be prepared in case of a disaster, such as an earthquake. So a few things you could do in regards to that is host events to provide education on emergencies. Community centers, police, and fire departments can help implement that and resurrect and enhance the neighborhood watch programs. We were under the understanding you did have those, but since COVID kind of came along, that kind of died down, so maybe it's time to resurrect that. We also had suggested that maybe twice a year do a registration day where you can get a lot of your middle school and teenagers to come to a centralized location and set up computers and have them sign up, everyone, for SMC Alert. We do have to remember that many of the older adults may not know how to use the technology or may not have Wi-Fi, and so this is a way to sign them up. And also they do have, SMC does have the option of landline as being the emergency. So, you know, the police department, sheriff department can call the landline and then leave the message that there is an emergency and give instructions on what needs to be done. We also talked about the importance of possibly developing a centralized list of homebound seniors so that when there is an emergency, the police department and or fire department and or city staff would be able to go to those homes and make sure that they are safe and that there's a safe evacuation process. What has been done in one city that I'm aware of is during COVID, the library had sent staff to deliver books. And at that time, they had asked some of the homebound seniors whether they would like to have their name on a list with their contact information, that in case there was an emergency, that they were on this list so that they would be called if something came up. And so many of them did volunteer that information. This is something that has to be voluntary because we have to respect HIPAA laws, but is something to consider. Also, to develop an emergency checklist that you can put as a flyer and send out to people and have at, you know, common gathering areas, whether that's a library, recreation center, a popular coffee shop, so somewhere where people go to, and also your various events that you have. And then it's also important to educate residents about the pre-designated facilities for evacuation, smoke days, and cooling centers.
So at the end of our action plan for Daly City, there are quite a few appendices that we include. One that Anne has mentioned is the project spreadsheet, which is a massive spreadsheet that includes all the information from all the focus groups, the town hall, the survey, the interviews with the city departments. And it includes the unmet needs as well as potential solutions for those needs. A link to this project spreadsheet is in that page of the action plan because it is such a big spreadsheet, it's impossible to fit it into the plan. So we hope you look at it because it does help in providing a roadmap for the city to be able to follow, since not all of the projects will be able to be done all at once, and this is a 5-year cycle. Appendices also include the city demographics, which include a breakdown of ethnicities, races, also languages spoken in Daly City, population by age group, as well as the total seniors in the total adult population. There is another section on current city practices related to age-friendly cities, and this is what the city is already doing. When we talk to each department, we ask them to also provide information on that. And so by reading this, you will see what is already going on and what improvements are already being made. In addition, there is some city history as well as a city government organizational chart. The AARP Livability Index, which is an index that AARP created themselves based on 7 categories of livability. So it shows you where Daly City falls in this as compared to cities in general. And definitely wanted to include equitable funding study. In 2021, Measure Q funding was allocated to several departments, including the active adults and seniors portion of the recreational services. This study focused on the question, what is the most strategic way to allocate this funding within recreational services that centers on equity as a value itself? So thank you for your time, and do you have any questions for us?
Thank you so much for that presentation. If anyone's watching, that was phenomenal work. This has been in the process for quite some time. First, as mentioned, being designated as an age-friendly city, and now taking it to the next level, really around looking at steps towards implementing what was heard from the community on the ground, and really looking at ways to work with staff, our community members to address some of these areas. Now, I'm gonna tell my colleagues, I've seen this presentation because I had the really the opportunity to work with these wonderful ladies. I want to acknowledge also those that have worked on this because this is a continuous iteration of these. But you know how often these women have been here. I want to acknowledge Jennifer Durr, that's in the audience, as well as Phyllis Rizzi, Leilani Ramos, Marie Valerosa, Janet Bronson, Myra Orugablio, Tita Perla Abrientos, Tina An, and these wonderful ladies here. Because this is, I would say, a labor of love. We have seen that there is going to probably be what they call I don't want to say it that way, but the silver tsunami, where we're going to see a rise of more older adults in our communities. But what's so special about Daly City is that we already have services with our recreation department that we've seen not only it grew. And it was mentioned around our Measure Q funding around supporting our older adults. And even through the pandemic, we saw how important it was, even more so, to support our older adults through programs on feeding the community members, reaching out to them if they're isolated. I also want to acknowledge that we have Tony Bayuden and the Office of Supervisor David Canepa on the heels of the county, stating that loneliness is an emergency. The city of Daly City, we were the first city in the nation to follow after that. And this is all in conjunction with ensuring that our older adult population has the support services needed. And you can tell the comprehensive work here, not only, it was listed, right, around transportation, around being able to have access to materials in culturally appropriate language, and being able to, in like so many levels. And so I'm just really proud to work along all of you. That's why I say, oh, I've seen this before, but I'm so happy it's here now. I mean, it's very, like, a lot of work, like meetings, and they're not just 1 hour meetings, they're like 2 hour meetings, like 2.5 hour meetings. And so I will now yield the comments to my colleagues because, it's an opportunity for now all of you to see the work and also be able to ask any questions, and hopefully further down the agenda be able to approve this plan. And so I will start over with you, Vice Mayor, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, great job on this action plan. I think it's very, very thorough. It feels like it's been combed many, many times through. And the ideas that you all presented is something that I feel like is doable and it's also necessary. Some of the things that came up was like the idea of having a senior advisory board. So when we think and the mayor talked about a silver tsunami, just looking at the trends and then Daly City being on have like a large representation of elders in our community, and it's only going to get larger, and we need like some sort of representation from those perspectives. Also, the idea of the emergency preparedness. I know we were on it during shelter in place, but I think we just need to we need to have some of these workshops back in terms of being prepared for anything that can happen, and especially with our seniors and our elders. I also like the idea of the age-friendly framework. I think that's really important because when we start thinking about policies that come through our desk, like what are the different intersections of our city that we need to think about. So when we talk about equity, that we need to really put in the forefront age as well. One thing that I came up with when I was looking at some of your ideas, and I think it's probably been done in many projects that I've heard from friends of mine, was like a multi-generational project of like an oral history project. That would be great to see if we can get something archived where younger folks can interview some of our elders in our community, talking about the experiences of either migration or experiences in Daly City. And I don't know if it's already been done, but it just sounds like a great idea to cover the range of generations.
They're actually doing that in Burlingame.
Oh, okay.
And Millbrae is also just started videotaping various older adults, some that have been there for over 60 years in the community, and some, newer residents. And so they started videotaping these stories, and the stories are about a half hour to 45 minutes. And then we actually, we asked, well, what are you doing with them? Well, we just have them on the cloud. I said, okay, but the community needs to see it. Mm-hmm. So one, the Mills High School has a videographer and a whole section in their school that the teenagers do all this filming. So I go, well, why don't you have the teenagers film so they can actually listen to these stories? And then include it in your e-news at the city level, but also the school level e-news, so that all these parents are able to see these stories too. So it's been done, and you just kind of alter it to what works best for your city.
Yeah, I had to put my scholarship hat on. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be just a great archive to have, and people can refer back to that, and then educators out there in Daly City can refer back to those stories and talk about how was it back in Daly City when we were in shelter in place. I know one of the, we get 20, 25 years down the road, but I think it's also, we have folks that have been here for many, many decades that'd be great to just touch upon, like what are the experiences of different folks in Daly City. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilmember Sylvester?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say, Ms. Nakayama and Ms. Keegren, it's a pleasure to see you both again. I remember approximately 6 years ago was Supervisor David Canepa, who basically was the nexus to the start of this program. And when I learned that Daly City has been approved by the World Health Organization, what specially impressed me is that, as you said, Ms. Keegren, you took an additional step to ensure to add additional projects, because before, when we were looking at the projects, the question was, can we do this? Can we do this? And I do remember one of my recommendations was to open up all of our community centers so that our seniors can watch the council meetings on television. And I'm kind of smiling because I was definitely, I'm still for the project, but I donated a TV to get this project going. But of course, I won that in a raffle from another event in Coma. So I think it's about paying back. But I have a few comments. First of all, I'd like to go to page 40 of the presentation. Instead of looking for it, I'll read what it says there by Ingrid Bergman. And it says, "Getting old is like climbing a mountain. You get a little out of breath, but the view is much better." I mean, I get out of breath just walking to the corner store, let alone trying to climb a mountain. And there's this one gentleman who we all know who wants me to walk up on the San Bruno Park and see the butterflies and over the mountain. But, you know, as Clint Eastwood would say, a man's got to know his limitations. But anyway, that saying was definitely all appropriate. Domain number 3, housing. Ms. Keegren, I am so happy that you brought up the issue about ADUs. Being a member of the HEART board, there's a donor who donated quite a substantial amount of money for an architect to draw up ADUs. And it's my understanding that they are going to each city, or they have been to each city, and those ADU architectural programs were approved. So if there's a homeowner, and you know, like the older residents of Daly City, there's a term called house rich but cash poor. And to build an ADU, you have to get an architect, and that costs money. But you can go to HEART, San Mateo HEART, and you can download the ADUs free of charge. Studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. And when you download them, you submit that to the city for a plan. So that works kind of both ways, because if you have an ADU in your backyard, you have, as the mayor made mention about the loneliness aspect, which leads me to HIP housing, where they try to match folks so that it's a win-win situation. They could be students, but yet they provide that companionship for the older folks. So I just wanted to bring that point up. I've said it before, and I'd say it again. Any homeowner who decides to put in an ADU to put in for more housing or develop more housing, they should get some sort of relief, whether it's property tax or some sort of relief, and say, hey, you got an ADU, we can reduce the rent, and it's a win-win situation. So I made mention about HIP housing. Domain number 7, transportation. I love your idea on a stipend, because I got a friend who delivers food during the pandemic and still does it today. He's been doing it every week for 3 years. And when he says he gets a $50 gas card and he goes to about 15 different residences, I went with him and I says, I'll help you do it. And they gave me a $50 gas card, but I drive electric. So I still got that gas card. But having a stipend, I don't think it's really going to cost that much. And I think we can do something like that. That's an excellent point. Emergency services. Coming from a prior law enforcement background, when we get a call of something going on within the city, communications is our eyes and ears. We don't know what's going on as police officers as we respond. To have the information, whether it's emergency contact, granted, you put down emergency, who to contact in cases of emergency. Well, it might be a family relative, but they live out of the city, Belmont, San Jose, New York. So what you made mention is your next door neighbor has been identified. Hey, in cases, they can probably even go over there to confirm. We need something like that. And if our law enforcement responds, at least they are armed with that information. Go ahead, Ann.
One of the projects that we mentioned in the spreadsheet is to develop various neighborhood directories.
Absolutely.
And so you find out, of course, voluntary, find out neighbors' names, contact information. The other thing is what their specialties are. You kind of want to know, do you have any nurses on the block, or police officers, firemen, someone who owns a generator, a plumber? So those types of things is really good to have at hand in case something does come up and you need to borrow something or you need to get someone in an emergency. And just do it in all the various geographical areas. And like you said, many don't have family here. It's outside the city, it's outside the state, it's outside the country. So you develop a new family. You develop neighborhood communities, you develop neighborhood families.
I like that, because now Office of Emergency Services has now come up with the issue, especially when we open up some of these centers, can these centers be provided emergency power and generators? And for years, the military has had plenty. Well, how can we get some? So that's an excellent idea. So I really appreciate that. Then there was the CERT aspect for training for those who are ready, willing, and able to perform and go through the CERT training. I think that would be an invaluable resource. SMC Alert. I don't know why all folks similar to PCE make everyone opt in, and it's up to you to opt out. SMC Alert is one of the best programs out there. I would also recommend PG&E Update. Every time I log into PG&E, they said, please update your account so that PG&E knows how to get a hold of you, whether by phone or whether by email, to send you service updates. I think that's, how many people log on to PG&E? Nope, they just pay their bill. Oh, you do? Okay, yes. Police response, got that. Throughout Daly City and throughout San Mateo cities, I've seen these posters in the stores, United Against Hate. I would like to see pamphlets at local stores where folks shop to contain all the resources, such as Alice. They put on the domestic violence program at least once a year. And I remember being in law enforcement, they would call upon me and say, can you bring resources that we can give out to all the participants, which also includes district attorney, who to call? Well, I like to see that at all the stores, and I like to see the city pay for those pamphlets and just put them out at the stores. Mr. Nakayama, I know you wanted to say something. Go ahead. No? Okay. All right. So that's just a thought. So I got Alice's resources, LEOs. I think for the most part, I am so impressed as to how far this has progressed throughout the years. And folks are living longer. I'm definitely in that category. So it'll be good to know that these resources are out there. So thank you for the work that you've done these past 6 years or so. And again, thank you to Supervisor David Canepa, who was the nexus to getting this going. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. We'd also like to thank the staff that we worked with throughout this project. They were quite helpful. I do want to stress that this action plan is an evolving document. So just because we provided the foundation, you can delete, you can add, you can do whatever you want with the document. We did a 3-year plan, and then with the AARP, we'll be sending this to the AARP to get that approved, hopefully. And then on a yearly basis, you'll be doing an evaluation form, and we'll talk a little bit more to the assistant to the city manager on how that's done. But I think it's a good document for the city. And like I said earlier, I strongly advised developing a senior commission and/or advisory board, because you want to make sure this doesn't sit on a shelf. You want eyes looking at this and making sure that projects are consistently being implemented and that it just doesn't die on that shelf and it's never, looked at again. I know those types of things happen at times, and staff have a lot of priorities, and the council has a lot of priorities. I know that from sitting on a city council for 17 years. So I was very cognizant, and when we developed this plan, that it was doable and realistic. And so I do hope you kind of use it as a handbook for your city. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your comments. I just wanted to interject as far as a senior commission or advisory board. I think it's something's important for us to have here in our city. I know that there will be volunteers that would love to. We have such an active older adult population, and so that is something that, in addition to a women's commission, would like to also see a senior commission or advisory board. And I think the voices of our community is so important. And to see that a part of this action plan gives more ample opportunity to hear from those in our neighborhoods and our communities first and foremost. And so I'm definitely in agreement with that. But I also want to thank those that are already on boards and commissions that are also older adults that we already presently have seated on our boards. But that's something I think to look towards. I think continuing to see if we can have additional commissions and boards in the future. And now our council woman, Teresa Prano, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'll make it real quick. Everyone here, my colleagues have spoken so well about, your project. And I just wanted to toss out one thing. It's nice that you took projects that we already have or departments, especially the senior group, the Dolger volunteers and Lincoln volunteers and the staff that, or I'm sorry, the residents that we have that work with the staff. I was lucky to be at the Dolger recognition of the volunteers last week, Friday, right? And what was really wonderful was to recognize the seniors that give so much to our community. And one lady said to me that that was her start. Like she hadn't been out, and then she started volunteering, and then that gave her community. So I just wanted to say how interesting this is. And I noticed you have a plan of 2025 to 2028. So you're giving us ample time to work on this. And I wanted to thank you and all the staff that worked on this as well.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Prano. And so with that, if there's no further questions, I just want to remind my colleagues that this will be on our consent agenda further down. And so moving on to our next item on our agenda for presentations, we have a proclamation for Arab American Heritage Month. Let me get the proclamation. Whereas this is a proclamation for National Arab American Heritage Month for April, whereas Arab American Heritage Month provides, whereas Arab American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the achievements, contributions, and resilience of Arab Americans while also promoting understanding, respect, and appreciation for their heritage and culture. And whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have made significant and valuable contributions to society, including science, medicine, technology, business, arts, literature, and politics, enriching the cultural and intellectual landscape of our nation. And whereas since migrating to America, people of Arab descent have shared their rich culture and traditions with neighbors and friends, while also setting fine examples of model citizens and public servants. And whereas they brought with them to America their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education, and diversity in faith and creed that have added strength to our great democracy. And whereas the history of Arab Americans in the United States remains neglected or defaced by misconceptions, bigotry, and anti-Arab hate in forms of crime and speech, and must be combated in forms of education and awareness. And whereas Arab Americans join all citizens in the desire to see a peaceful and diverse society where every individual is treated equally and feels safe. And whereas during this month, let us honor the diverse tapestry of Arab American communities, their history, culture, and contributions to our nation, and reaffirm our commitment to building a more inclusive and equitable society for all. And now, therefore, I, Jocelyn C. Manalo, Mayor and members of the City Council of Daly City, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Arab American Heritage Month. And I urge all citizens to observe this month with programs, ceremonies, and activities that celebrate the achievements and contributions of Arab Americans to our nation. I call on Hiba to please receive this proclamation.
I'm bringing friends with me, if that's okay. Thank you. Oh, we're taking a photo?
Yeah, photo.
Oh, so confused.
This is usually what we.
Do you want to be in the middle of us?
Yeah.
You hold it on our behalf.
No.
Yeah. Do you guys want? Okay. We're gonna be here for a minute. I want you guys in my background. Okay. It's my aesthetic right now. Okay. I'm not used to not being timed, so I'm living for this. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. As you all know, I'm an unapologetic Palestinian Muslim woman who has lived in Daly City quite literally since I was in my mother's womb. I was asked by Mayor Manalo to accept this proclamation on behalf of Arab American Heritage Month. Thank you again. To be completely transparent, at first I had mixed feelings about accepting this because I don't want me, my people, or our heritage to be tokenized by the same system that oppresses our people and refuses to acknowledge our humanity. We are more than just a diversity quota that needs to be fulfilled. Regardless, I ultimately decided to accept this proclamation on behalf of the Arab community because I do think it should be up to us to control our narrative outside of these oppressive systems. Before I get into the meat of what I have to say, I do want to acknowledge that we currently reside on the stolen land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people who are still resisting colonialism, ethnic cleansing, and the erasure of their history to this day. Just like our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we also must be committed to resisting colonialism in all its ugly forms. Palestine is the prime example of resisting colonialism. You will have people who are committed to upholding a system of white supremacy, segregation, and apartheid try to convince you that what is happening in Gaza and the rest of historic Palestine is too complicated for you to understand. They will tell you that you are not intelligent enough, that you don't know your history, that you are a racist for advocating for the liberation of Palestinians and our ancestral lands. Do not let these people intimidate you or scare you into silence. Our cause is just. Today, we are 198 days into the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. As all Palestinians know, the mass murder of our people did not begin after October 7th. We know that the mass displacement of our people did not begin after October 7th. We know that the forced starvation and humanitarian catastrophe that we are bearing witness to today of Palestinians in Gaza did not just occur after October 7th. Next month, on May 15th, we will be honoring the 76th anniversary of Al-Nakba, which translates from Arabic as the catastrophe. This is also celebrated as the Zionist entity's birth. In 1948, the Zionist entity displaced over 750,000 Palestinian people, creating a refugee crisis in my community that has persisted today into over 5 million registered Palestinian refugees. In 1948, there were over 70 massacres and over 15,000 Palestinians murdered at the hands of the Zionist entity. Just between 2008 and 2023, over 6,200 Palestinians were murdered by the Zionist entity. That is averaging at least 410 Palestinian people every year for the past 15 years. This was before October 7th. That number does not encompass the number of my people who have been murdered between 1949 and 2008, which is somewhere in the tens of thousands. Today, since October 7th, just in Gaza, in the span of just 6 months, keep in mind the stats I just gave you, there have been over 40,000 Palestinians who have been murdered by the Zionist entity. In 1948, over 500 Palestinian villages were depopulated and destroyed. Over 500. Today, the settler colonial state continues to ethnically cleanse indigenous Palestinian land and violate international law by building Zionist settlements on what little land Palestinians still have a claim to. They have been using the current genocide in Gaza to speed roll the expansion of these settlements. I bring up al-Nakba to share a history that is filled with so much grief and trauma, but also resilience and steadfastness. Palestinians still exist to this day because of this, and I am here as a byproduct of this resilience and steadfastness. I also want to honor all of our martyrs, the people who have never lived one peaceful day in their entire life, who have only ever known life under a military occupation, who, like all of us, had hopes and dreams, things and people that they loved, the strongest of faiths and will to live, despite living under these horrific conditions for over the past 75 years. Their legacies will stay alive through our dedicated collective effort to liberate our people and our lands. And I don't want to take up a lot of your time. You know, I can talk for days. I just want to read a little poem I wrote before October 7th, but it still applies today, unfortunately. So the saying is so cliche that most people have a land that they call home, but for our people, our home lives within us and our very core being. For some, it's a land we've never known, a scent we are not familiar with, although we are overly familiar with the sense of loss, the never-ending pain, the prolonged grief. We are overly familiar with the trauma, the inability to heal individually, collectively, and intergenerationally. The generations of our children, past, present, and future, united by a shared struggle, by the loss, the pain, the grief, the trauma, only until the hour of liberation, inshallah. At the hour of liberation, the apartheid wall will fall, the military checkpoints dismantled, the colonizers' prisons abolished. Our children will simply be children, the right of return prevalent. There will never be another human being martyred, not one more home or school destroyed, not one more olive tree burned to the ground. Our holy sites never again violated by settler colonial violence. Our people will finally know peace, breathing in the air of true freedom, with the ability to love and be loved in peace, to finally have the capacity for individual, collective, and intergenerational healing, to create a generation of our people who will never know the struggle, the loss, the pain, the grief, the trauma, and inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hiba, and the community for being here, and for sharing your poem that you have written, and for sharing your culture, your community with all of us today. I know that there has been, it's been a hard time, even very recently from last week. And so thank you for that. And I will, I think that there is so much, I would say, so much truth to when you speak on your experiences and you being here, growing up in Daly City, and how this is not I just want to let you know, for me, it's not tokenism. It's to honor our tapestry of really diversity ever since I grew up here in Daly City. This is what I know as Daly City, how rich and diverse our community is, and how we live very harmoniously from when I moved here at the age of 8. And so today is a reflection of how beautiful our community is. And so that is why we wanted to make sure that we honored your community today. So Vice Mayor.
I'm in silence not because I'm wordless. I'm in silence because I'm humbled. And I don't know about you all, like I felt that. And Hiba, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for speaking truth to power. And as a Filipino American in this seat, and the work that I do in the community, just like you, I don't do it for fame. There is a historical, political, social responsibility of why I'm up here and why you're fighting for your causes, and I stand in solidarity with you and all the Palestinians in the world to talk about genocide. What is it gonna do generationally in terms of trauma? But I also wanna be there when the healing begins as well. So thank you for blessing us with your words, your passion, your purpose, your fight. I think when I don't consider myself like an elder, but I just feel like sometimes you find mentorship in spaces where folks that are a little bit younger than me inspire me to remind myself about the work that what I'm supposed to be doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other comments from my colleagues? Okay. Thank you so much. Now we'll be moving on to item number 3. It's a proclamation, and I will call on Inspector Orlando Aguin for Wildfire Preparedness Month. Is Inspector Orlando here? Oh, please come up. And this proclamation is for May 2024 for Wildfire Preparedness Month. Whereas in California, over 2 million homes are at risk of wildfire, and whereas last year, 7,127 wildfires burned 324,917 acres across the state. And whereas 90% of all wildfires are human-caused, human acts of carelessness result in wildfire disasters every year. And where each year more people move into wildland-urban interface areas, increasing the need to increase awareness among our citizens on how they can protect their property from wildfire losses. And whereas Genesis Protect, formerly known as Zone Haven, has adopted a county-wide tool to inform evacuations during wildfire, and we encourage Know Your Zone before an emergency arises. And whereas the North County Fire Authority encourages fire-safe behavior by all who live, work, and recreate throughout the city of Daly City. And whereas each of us can do our part to prepare for wildlife emergencies by taking steps to make effective changes to our homes, landscapes to reduce the risk of wildfire. Now, therefore, I, Jocelyn C. Manalo, and Mayor and members of the City Council, now hereby proclaim May 2024 as Wildlife Preparedness Month and encourage all Daly City residents to increase their knowledge and awareness of proper safety measures to protect themselves from the devastating effects of wildfires. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. On behalf of North County Fire Authority, we accept this proclamation and thank you for giving us this time to discuss about wildfire preparedness and awareness within our community. I would like to remind the community to always maintain your shrubbery around your homes and make sure you clean out your gutters and also your roofs if you're near tall trees. We do want to ensure that our community is safe. And just as a heads up to our community, we'll be at Arden Park on May 19th from 10 to 1 p.m. And we'll have handouts and we'll be able to discuss about fire safety to the community and to help those that need help in discussing fire safety. And just a reminder to the community, if you ever need help with fire or you have any questions regarding that, please contact our office at North County Fire Authority. And thank you again for having us today.
Before you leave, I don't know if my colleagues have any comments or questions. If you can, it's okay. I just want to say thank you for the work that you all do to educate our communities. I'm grateful to sit on the Joint Powers Authority with Councilmember Sylvester for the North County Fire Authority. And one of the recent meetings that we had, one question I did ask was around ensuring that we have all of the information disseminated in language so that our communities are able to understand these precautions. And I just want to acknowledge that you all have been taking the next steps in order to ensure that all of I think videos or social media is actually in language capacity for our community members. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. We've seen how the wildfires have affected us in years back. And so being able to make sure our communities know exactly what to do to prepare is huge. So I want to say thank you to the North County Fire Authority and also to all of the firefighters who are there to protect our neighborhoods and ensure nothing happens at San Bruno Mountain. I think that's probably the closest kind of nature with all our trees that are close to us, right there behind that hill. And so thank you for all that work. I will see if my vice mayor has any comments in regards to this.
No, I concur with the mayor. As a person that lives very close to the San Bruno Mountain, you don't realize an emergency until it really happens. And I remember, I believe it was like 2019 when they had a fire out there, and I was like, is that a fire? You start smelling it and it gets really close, and then you start seeing the flames, and it's like, it could really happen. And so with this proclamation, don't wait till the last second of a emergency to happen to be prepared. You got to know what's going on before it even happens. So thank you.
Thank you. My colleagues? Any?
No comment. Everything's been, I have to say ditto to the comments that I've heard also this evening. Thank you for the job you folks continue to do for our city. Thank you.
I'm just going to agree. You know, preparedness is what's very important. And I like how you go to the schools and you teach them from when they're young so that they have that in their mind. And hopefully they never need to use the pointers or the education they receive with regards to fire. But if they do, it's amazing. They're the ones shouting out the direction, I'm sure, you know, when we need to know it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now moving on to item number 4, it is the approval of the minutes for April 8th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'd like to make a second on that.
Okay, I have a second. And why don't we, all in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Approval of minutes granted. And now moving on to the approval of the agenda. Motion to approve agenda.
So move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Glenn Sylvester, second.
Okay, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, thank you very much. Now moving on to public appearances and oral communications. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes unless modified by the mayor. The council cannot take any action on any matter raised under this item. The first person for general public comment I will call up is Amanda.
Hello. I've been living in Daly City for the last 5.5 years. I'm a San Franciscan and a first-generation Christian Palestinian American. Here I am again, asking you to schedule a time to later vote on a symbolic and necessary proclamation of solidarity with the people suffering U.S.-funded genocide. To argue about whether or not this is genocide is absurd. Palestinian people are being hunted and exterminated at a faster rate than we've ever seen before in recent history. This country is openly funding ample financial and military aid to make sure that this genocide continues. Biden recently approved ample aid to both Ukraine and Israel. Ukraine is suffering an ongoing, inhumane, and unjust attack, and the Palestinian people have been suffering evil, illegal occupation and ethnic cleansing for 75 years, and as you know, at a disgusting rate for the last 198 days. This does not account for the lives stolen in the West Bank. 40,000 lives in Gaza alone. That number's atrocious and only growing as we speak. Quite frankly, I'm exhausted endlessly trying to prove that being a Palestinian does not make anyone less than human. This symbolic resolution will demonstrate your own humanity in that you stand against the mass destruction of a land and a people merely wanting to exist freely in their homeland. To stand for a ceasefire is to stand for the immediate stop to constant bombing of children and families. Please agendize and ultimately pass the ceasefire resolution for an immediate surplus of human aid into Gaza. The Palestinian people want to live freely. Stand with humanity, not with violence. Free Palestine.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Greg Bernard, and I am the Director of Programs from a nonprofit named Rebuilding Together Peninsula. Rebuilding Together Peninsula has served many members, some of who are here tonight, for the past 35 years, providing free home services to adjusted median income qualified households. We are asking for a slight increase in funding because the cost of doing repairs has skyrocketed, not only in Daly City, but around the Bay Area. And the average household income of the people that we're serving in Daly City, let me put my glasses on so I could see this, is about approximately $38,000. So the people that we are serving have to now choose from, getting heat or buying groceries in some cases, and we're trying to solve that. This year, we have served 7 people, and we're on track to finish that out. We know that the increase that we're asking for in this year is substantial, but it's mainly because of the inflation and the cost of what contractors are charging now. We have seen an increase go from replacing a service panel for a house from approximately $2,500 a couple years ago to nearly $7,000 to $9,000 a day. So we're just asking that Daly City keep up with the other jurisdictions that we're serving. We've seen an increase of about 50% in San Mateo, Palo Alto, and a bunch of other facilities. We realize this is a significant increase, but we know that we are going to follow all the rules that the city places on us. We work closely with Betsy Zobel and Ann Conway in the city, and we're willing to do whatever it is they request of us to meet these regulations.
Thank you. Ari, please come up.
Okay, hello. I'm here again today to ask for you to agendize a resolution for immediate, oh, I'm so sorry. My bad. I'm here again today to ask you to agendize a resolution for immediate ceasefire and flow of humanitarian aid. The numbers of people who have been murdered, missing, or injured has done nothing but increased while the world has just watched. These are families, children, babies, all being violently and inhumanely taken from their loved ones and communities, taken from the world. We, your constituents, have been showing up consistently asking for you to show us your support, to show us you have humanity within you, to stand up in the face of a genocide. I'm sure you recognize our faces by now and have seen how consistent we've been, because that's how much this means to us. We show up right after work, take time away from school during Ramadan, Eid, or anything, because nothing will come in the way of us fighting for our people. Now compare that to those who oppose a ceasefire resolution. How many did you see here last time? How many do you see here today? I'll rest my case with that one. The same faces you see here in this room are the same ones that were assaulted for peaceably protesting for a ceasefire in South San Francisco. And even that didn't stop us or shy any of us away from continuing our advocacy for Gaza. This call for a ceasefire may be symbolic, and now especially should be the time to call for one and be heard. We currently have Bay Area residents, comrades, and honestly a close friend who are putting their bodies and quite honestly their lives on the line to bring in 5,500 tons of humanitarian aid. Time is imminent. We need a ceasefire. Please and thank you.
Thank you. Weda? Weda? W, is it an N? Oh, Neda? Yeah. Sorry, it looked like a W.
Hi, Council. So over the weekend, Congress passed a bill to send more funding, $17 billion, to Israel to continue their bombing campaign against Gazans, which Kevin Mullen did endorse. Last week here in this meeting, or the last time we met, we were arguing for about $30,000 for a summer camp for 300 children. $17 billion. We are the ones funding this genocide in Gaza. Today, the city of Daly City issued a proclamation to declare April Arab Heritage Month. It's important that the city does not stop here. Although it is a gesture of recognition of the Arab community, we need more than recognition of our culture and existence in the city. You cannot celebrate our culture but ignore and stay silent during the almost 200th day of genocide against our families in Gaza and the West Bank. We have learned as a community that representation won't save us. It won't bring us liberation. We can exist within the institutionalized systems established, but working and existing under the system will not free us from our oppressors. We are here again, asking you all for a basic solidarity statement with the Palestinian constituents of your city. Do not stay complicit in the genocide of our people by staying silent. Day after day, the situation in Gaza gets worse and worse. We do not have time for silence anymore. Again, we are almost on our 200th day of active genocide. Over 15,000 children have been killed by the Israeli government. And we're here, and it's like hard for us to pass a ceasefire resolution when we should have done this months ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam?
Good evening, Council. The other night, my 3-year-old woke up screaming from a bad dream. She told me that she had a spider in her bed and asked if she could sleep with Mama. I pulled her close to me, and she put her little hand on my face and quickly fell back asleep. I laid next to her and listened to her breathe. With each breath, I thank God that she is alive and safe, that we are all safe. I haven't been able to sleep well in nearly 200 days. When I sleep, I don't rest. I dream of dead children and destruction. In my dreams, I'm running. I'm panicking. I'm looking to find a way to stop all of this. Over 15,000 children have been killed. I was asked the other day, despite all the rejection that we've gotten as a community, why we've been so persistent. My answer is twofold. One, Palestinians never give up. We are a resilient people. All we have is our dignity and our community. Two, our children are our future. The House passed a $95 billion bill to fund the war machine. $17 billion from American taxpayers would be sent to Israel. That's money that could fund healthcare, roads, schools, community programs, loan forgiveness, you name it. People living in Daly City are barely making it. You all know that. They're barely making it. They're barely making their rent. They can barely pay for their groceries. They can barely pay for their prescriptions. Why are we sending our tax dollars off like that? This is a movement being led by a multicultural, multi-generational coalition of community members. You've seen that firsthand. We want this genocide to stop, and we are asking our local leaders, people like you, sitting in these seats, to stand with us, to stand with humanity.
Thank you. Stephanie, and then Rami.
To be honest, I don't even know what to say anymore. It's Autumn Heritage Month, and here we are having to beg for our people's lives to be seen as valid and worthy of protection. I'm exhausted, angry, heartbroken, and have never been so thoroughly confused in my entire life. And yet the burden that I feel isn't even a tiny fraction of what the people of Gaza have to face and endure every second of every minute of every day. The genocide of my people has been happening consistently for nearly 200 days, broadcasted live on every social media network and news station near you. And this comes after 75 years of brutal occupation and apartheid. And yet it feels like most people in positions of power are turning a blind eye to these crimes against humanity simply to benefit their image or their bank account. I'm at a loss for words as to what to even say to anyone who still isn't certain as to whether they'd vote yes on a ceasefire resolution. I'd like to assume that none of you fall into that category, but I think if that was the case, it would have already passed. And if you're still feeling hesitant about advocating for the lives of innocents, all I can do is pray that your heart defrosts and that your soul somehow finds its way back to you. There's nothing even remotely controversial about a call to save lives, any lives, let alone children's lives. 3 times the amount of children than what's enrolled in the Daly City Unified School District have been murdered in Gaza. Can you imagine if every single child, school-age child in Daly City was killed? the pain, the trauma that this community would be experiencing, how can anyone sleep at night if they're not speaking out against this? How can anyone find anything controversial in defending the lives of innocent children and adults? And if I'm being honest, while it's unimaginably tragic how many lives have been lost, my heart aches in an unfathomable way for those still experiencing this genocide. The mental and physical toll our privileged minds can't even fathom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. You already know I'm up here for a ceasefire resolution. My people have been fighting for almost 76 years and will continue to do so until our liberation. My people know that life is worth it, but know it isn't fair. It's that mentality that drives my people's steadfastness to come out time and time again, speaking truth to power until we attain justice. And that truth is that we are 6 months into genocide. Over 40,000 people murdered by Israel in Gaza alone in those 6 months. That's not even counting the murders of Palestinians in the West Bank. We're watching tens of thousands of children murdered in real time. Real time. The sentiment of the people starts here and makes its way up. The longer we put this off, the longer it takes for our government to understand the gravity of what we demand as citizens and constituents, the more we unnecessarily fund wars abroad, and ultimately the more dead civilians and children we're forced to bury. It baffles me that there are people that would even second guess bringing forth a ceasefire resolution. The excuses that I've heard to not bring forth a ceasefire resolution are all absurd and take mental gymnastics to justify. I've heard people say that a resolution would be divisive, as though a genocide isn't divisive at all, and that we should sit idly by as more thousands of people are massacred. At this point, I've run out of new things to say. Like, it's all been said at this point. We've mentioned how tens of thousands of children have been murdered by Israeli soldiers. We've mentioned that we've seen footage of soldiers feeding Palestinians to their dogs. We've seen everything at this point. There is not a single surprise humanity can show the Palestinians at this point. And it's not an international issue anymore. It affects us locally. The people behind me, your constituents, I fear for them every day. We've been abused, assaulted, spat on, had things thrown at us, the book, like everything. And all we ask is for a solidarity statement. Please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, and then Lena.
Thank you, Mayor. I listened to you reading the proclamation with my great respect. It's a very nice proclamation, but it's the same copy from every city, every district, every state in the United States. To recognize this community and to see their feelings is you need to be counted. Up to this minute, you don't count us. In the friendly city of Daly City, we talked about languages. But our community has been tucked under the category of white Americans because the feds decided that white Americans stand for Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. We are not counted. If there's a hate crime tomorrow against these young people, your state is going to list it as a white American being attacked. Every issue belongs to our community, even the issue of aging, producing materials about COVID-19, about friendly housing for the senior citizens of the Arab community in this city are listed as a white American. You need to support Assembly Bill number 2763, AB 2763 by Assembly Member Asili, to recognize this community, to listen to them, to see their numbers. Right now, you don't see their numbers. You think the community is a group of young people are here to speak about their agony, about their feeling about Gaza, which is a great thing, but I want you to see the community in numbers. We are thousands. Vice Mayor is talking about history. I'm a history of Daly City. I was here in 1979. When my brother came here last week, he asked me about peas and pipes, if they're still around. I'm a history, and this city, which had the first pita factory in Northern California, was in Daly City. We have Casablanca restaurant. We have so many businesses. We are a major part of the city. You need to respect us and to support us to be a part of these numbers, actual numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Lena?
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Lena. I'm a lifelong resident of Daly City, and I've attended Daly City Public Schools my entire life. I went to Westlake Elementary, Ben Franklin Middle School, and I'm a graduate of Terra Nova High School. All three of my siblings graduated from Westmore. Today, I'm here to urge you to agendize and pass a resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. We're currently witnessing a devastating full-force genocide with over 40,000 Palestinians killed, 15,000 of which are children. To put it into perspective for you on how horrific the genocide of Gaza is, since the last time we showed up here, 19 people from one family were killed overnight by an Israeli airstrike. 13 children killed from one family overnight. Among the dead was a pregnant woman, but the doctors managed to save the baby's life. Can you understand the absolutely horrific way in which this child was born into this world? Israel continues to kill Palestinians in every stage of life. Most recently, Israel bombed Gaza's largest fertility clinic and wiped out over 4,000 frozen IVF embryos, destroying the only hope for hundreds of Palestinian couples facing infertility issues. Today, I'm here to ask you to listen to us, and I urge you to take action. We're simply asking you to advocate for humanity. Please follow in the footsteps of other Bay Area cities like East Palo Alto, San Francisco, Oakland, Richmond, and Albany, who passed ceasefire resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker card I have is Hiba.
Sorry you have to hear me talk so much, but I'm kind of living for it at this point. This is the outfit I was wearing in South City 2 weeks ago when I was physically and verbally assaulted. I already spoke to this with Rod and Jocelyn. I haven't spoke to you two about this. I was hit in the face by someone who is advocating for the death of my people in South City. We have weekly ceasefire rallies where there are children present because it's a safe space that was cultivated by our community over the course of a few weeks. He came in agitated and physically and verbally assaulted all of us. He currently has a felony and 2 misdemeanor charges. I'm going to his preliminary hearing on Thursday. Anyways, I don't have much to say at this point. You guys heard everything I had to say. I'm gonna play the videos from this assault so you guys know what kind of sentiment do you allow in our county when you stay silent during a genocide that directly affects your constituents here.
Bomb Palestine! Bomb Palestine! Bomb Palestine! Bomb Palestine!
Do you know how much that hurts? You have community members who have lost dozens of family members in airstrikes. And there was someone who's advocating for further violence when we are asking for a ceasefire to cease it.
Leave right now, bro. Fuck you! I got a right to be here. The police station.
You are, but you're assaulting us. You're committing assault against all of us.
I'm not committing assault.
You are. Assault is verbal.
You with your petty ass bullshit.
Assault is verbal. This man hit me in the face. Do you have anything to say? Also, Glenn Sylvester, on the record, I'm requesting to meet with you. You've had constituents try to meet with you, and I think you need to make yourself more available, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other speaker cards, we will now be closing public comment at this time. We're moving on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda, is there a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Motion to approve, Glenn Sylvester.
Thank you. I have a first. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to our board commission memberships. or any appointments from my colleagues? Are there any appointments on commissions or boards? Okay, seeing none.
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Okay.
At this time, I would like to appoint Mr. Tom Nuris to the Planning Commission.
I'll second that. So, Tom Nuris, do we do a roll call vote on may we have a roll call vote on Tom Nuris as appointment for, this is for Planning Commission?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Planning Commission.
Dr. Rod?
Madam City Clerk.
Another comment, just for clarification, Mayor, this is to replace the vacant seat now for Ms. Prano.
Okay. So does that mean he is vacating the Personnel Board? Because he's currently on the Personnel Board. Has he formally resigned from it? Is that what he's doing?
Well, I spoke to him and he's willing to move.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Rod?
Aye.
I have a
Oh.
quick question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Madam City Attorney, do we need a formal resignation on the Personnel Board, or can Councilmember Sylvester appoint him to the Planning Commission without a resignation? I just want to make sure that we're following all the kind of
Sure.
processes.
You can go ahead with the appointment, and then we would go ahead and proceed with the formal resignation after.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, sorry, Vice Mayor, I just wanted clarification
No
on
problem.
that.
I was ready.
Dr. Rod?
Aye.
Ms. Perano?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester?
Glenn Sylvester, aye.
Ms. Manalo?
Aye. Okay. Welcome, Mr. Norris, to the Planning Commission. Are there any other appointments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to council committee reports at this time. Are there any council committee reports from my colleagues? I think prior to us moving on, I did at the last meeting create a subcommittee. And for those of you in the audience and those of you watching, it consists of Vice Mayor Das Magbual and Teresa, our council member, Teresa Praño, that is on that committee.
I got kind of mixed up. I thought we were going to announce it on City Council, but I'll say it now. So Teresa Perano and I, we met on Friday, April 19th, 2024 with our staff. We looked at various resolutions, considering ceasefire resolutions that were passed, that didn't pass. We're currently looking and drafting a resolution, and I am very, very hopeful that we will have something agendized by our next meeting.
I don't have anything else to add. We did read a lot, and we discussed it, yes, and we've discussed it with council, and we hope to have something soon.
Thank you to both of you for your work on that and your continued work on it. I know that that was your first meeting, and I just want to thank you both for your time and effort on this. Are there any other council committee reports? Seeing none, we're moving on to our city council reports. I want to acknowledge to everyone that it is Earth Day. So Earth Day to everyone. And for those of you that are watching, we have our annual Earth Day event on Saturday, May 4th, right here at City Hall from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. At this annual Earth Day event, we will be having secure document shredding, e-waste drop-off, mattress recycling, used tire take-back, and proof of residency is required for this service, but it's something that we have been doing on an annual basis. I also believe that we will have, I think there's a top of the hill cleanup. Is that right, Leilani? What time does that start again?
It also starts at 9:30 a.m.
9:30 a.m. So there's a neighborhood cleanup at top of the hill for those that want to join. I also want to state that I already mentioned that at our last council meeting, the subcommittee was formed in order to have some movement in regards to the outpour of community members that have come to our meetings. Also, I feel strongly that both Vice Mayor Das Magwal and Teresa Praano will be able to work through together. And that's why I appointed both of them to this committee. It's been quite some time on city council reports because of how long our meetings have been continuously. And so I'm going to be reporting on some of the events in our community that have happened. I want to acknowledge that the Daly City Public Library Associates held its 11th annual St. Patrick's Day, event, which yielded an opportunity to raise funds for our libraries in our communities. The 15th annual anniversary of the Daly City History Guild happened as well. I want to thank Aragon High School for welcoming me to speak as one of the AAPI leaders to talk about government and law with their organization and nonprofit Diversity in Us. I want to acknowledge that it is the 14th year anniversary of Air Lollipops, a small business in our community, which opened a venue on top of the hill called A Venue. So if you're looking for rental space to host events, also the Daly City Chamber of Commerce had their annual crab feed that happened. I think it hasn't happened for quite some time due to the pandemic. And I know that that was a huge success. Also joined the 95th anniversary of Chinese Medicine Day in the Bay Area. Also wanted to say thank you to those that came to our annual State of the City here at City Hall. It is still available for all of you to view via YouTube. There was also the Skyline President's Breakfast that had happened at, thank you for your leadership on your other hat, Council Member Praano. And I also want to your Vice Chair, Matt DeVincenzi. I know that there was a lot of funds raised for Skyline College to be able to do a lot of the programming catered to our students. So thank you for that. Those that attended and those that supported that Skyline College. There was also a ribbon cutting that happened for Safe Routes to School with Supervisor David Canepa. I want to thank him for his leadership and being on the, MTA. This improvement project is right by Ben Franklin Middle School and also Garden Village. And so there's opportunity to ensure that there's more access and visibility for children crossing the street to Garden Village. Also, I want to say thank you to all of those that joined us for Women's History Month to honor the amazing women in our community, Marian Brown, Marian Mann, Perla Abrientes, Becca Mofua, Phyllis Rizzi, who was just here with us earlier in the audience, Kalima Salahuddin, Lizelle Chan Lucero, Anna Valenzuela, Shireen Malek Kalzali, Alice Lee, and these are our youth, Alice Lee, Lauren Tam, Charlotte Sang, and the organization Alice and Gabriella Daly City. I want to thank the Fierce Coalition for inviting me to be their keynote speaker for the Filipino American Policy Symposium, in which I know they will be doing an advocacy day in the California State Legislature. I want to acknowledge the recreation staff for their tremendous work alongside other city departments for their spring fun day. I think that is continuously an event that is, there's so many people that come to it on an annual basis. I know that we continue to make it not costly for our residents to have recreation opportunities for the youth. I also want to say thank you to our supervisor, Canepa, for providing dollars towards our funding towards the Vista Grande improvement, and also for, I think at that time also, I want to say I look forward to the future events that he'll be hosting as far as working towards ensuring we address the loneliness as an emergency in our county, and ways for us to cross-collaborate citywide and also countywide. That's what I have for now. I will now hand it over to Vice Mayor.
Just really short, the mayor and I met on April 3rd about the solid waste meeting. We had a conversation about rates, and it's an ongoing discussion, and we're looking forward to discussing more about our future discussions.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for remembering that. Yes, we did meet on that solid waste, and you're right, we're continuing the discussion around that item because we wanted more data from staff and also the consultant. So thank you for remembering that. Any other city council reports from my colleagues?
None.
Councilmember Piano.
Thank you. I quickly touched base on the event for the seniors, and I was quite impressed with the work of the city workers. Everybody got together and served and plated and did everything for the seniors, and it was very nice to recognize them, and they appreciated it. So I just wanted to say it was a nice event.
Thank you so much. One last item in addition to our city council report. Every year there is a seminar called Progress Seminar in which San Mateo leaders, whether they're elected, school board members to large and small businesses, corporations to nonprofits, they all meet to convene to talk about issues in the community. And so that just happened over the past weekend in order to forge collaborations and partnerships. And I just wanted to share that that was something that occurred over this past weekend. All right, I think that is it. If there's no other city council report, I will now ask our city manager, Tom Piccolotti, if there are any reports on your end.
Nothing to report.
Oh, nothing to report. Okay, thank you. We are now at the end of our meeting, and I will ask my colleagues in honor and in memoriam. I will yield it over to Vice Mayor Das Magwal.
Okay, so I want to adjourn in memory of Roman Gabriel. I first came to know about Roman Gabriel through my work as a student organizer back when I was living in Southern California. And they had this giant mural in Los Angeles. It was the Filipino-American mural. And I never realized he was Filipino. And so I'm just going to read a little bit about who Roman Gabriel is. I know the rivalry between the Rams and the Niners. So I know he's a Ram, but, let's give some compassion to him and his family. So Roman Gabriel had big size and a big arm when he was the he was the second draft pick of the Los Angeles Rams in 1962. Even while playing in an era of grinding it out on the ground, he still holds Rams team record with 154 touchdown passes. Gabriel, the first Filipino-American quarterback in the NFL and the league MVP in 1969, died Saturday, April 20th. He was 83. Gabriel, who played at North Carolina State and was a two-time Player of the Year in the Atlantic Coast Conference, was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1989. He was a 6'5", 235-pound, Big Four quarterback in that era. Green Bay coach Vince Lombardi once described him as a big telephone pole, according to the LA Times. Gabriel played 11 years for the Rams and 5 years with the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's see here. Gabriel was such a hot prospect that the Rams made him number 2 pick in the NFL draft, and the Oakland Raiders, the rival of the AFL, selected him at number 1. Gabriel wound up signing with the Rams. From 1967 to 1970, Gabriel led the Rams to a 41-14-4 record and 2 division titles, though never a playoff game. He was voted MVP in 1969 after throwing 2,549 yards and 24 touchdowns, passes, and 5 rushing scores. After retiring, Gabriel worked briefly for CBS, calling NFL games. He went into coaching with stints at Cal Poly Pomona, the Boston Breakers of the USFL, and Raleigh Durham in the World League of American Football. Gabriel also dabbled in acting. His credits included Skidoo, starring Jackie Gleason, 1968, and 1969's The Undefeated, starring John Wayne and Rock Hudson. He appeared in such TV shows as Gilligan Island, Perry Mason, Ironside, and Wonder Woman. He also joined Bob Hope on a U.S. tour of Vietnam. So rest in peace, Roman Gabriel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Peranio.
I have 2 relatives that we've lost. My cousin Ernesto, we called him Lenny Padilla Lopez. He's also my neighbor. So he was home. Well, he went to visit his parents who live in Mexico, and he was rear-ended, and at the age of 58, he died. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize my aunt, Antonia Lopez. She was 91, so she was the patriarch of 11 children, 30 grandchildren, and 48 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-grandchild. And I have fond memories of her when we lived on East Moki, and they live on West Moki, right across Mission Street. And I just wanted to recognize her because her service was today. And thank you for letting me recognize 2 family members.
Condolences to your family. I'd like to adjourn in memory of Antonio Tony Deseo Salcedo, who passed away peacefully at his home in Daly City on March 25th, 2024. He was 90. Antonio survived by his children Cora Ann Salcedo, Ong, Lawrence Ong, and Leilani Salcedo, his grandchildren Menelik Ong and Ivory Ann Makeda Ong, his sisters Cayetana Salcedo Paras and Maria Salcedo Durante. Antonio is preceded in death by his wife Corazon Ramos Salcedo, his brothers Victor Deseo Salcedo, Amando Deseo Salcedo, and Genaro Deseo Salcedo, and Philemon Deseo Salcedo. Antonio was born on June 13, 1933 in Honolulu, Hawaii, to the late Calixto Salcedo and Rosario Deseo Salcedo. He was the eldest child. His father was a retired staff sergeant with the U.S. Army and a musician. His mother was a housewife and faith healer. At a young age, Antonio traveled to the Philippines by ship with his parents and sister Cayetana. He attended elementary school at Makati Catholic School and high school at the Catholic Parochial School of St. Catherine in Iloilo, Philippines. He continued his college education in Manila, Philippines at Far Eastern University and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Commerce and Accounting. After his college degree, he moved to his birthplace in Honolulu, Hawaii in 1960, where he continued his education in University of Hawaii and obtained 2 certificates for counseling and finance management and investment accounting for managers. In 1971, while vacationing in the Philippines, he was introduced to Corazon by her cousin. They were married on November 4, 1971. Antonio returned to Hawaii after they married. while Corazon stayed behind to spend holidays with her family. In 1973, the couple welcomed their first child, Cora Ann. They moved to San Francisco, California in 1975, and the couple welcomed their second child, Leilani Marie. Antonio served as an auditor for the Filipino American Council of San Francisco and pursued his higher accountant roles with the federal government with General Services Administration and was awarded with a Certificate of Outstanding Performance. As a successful accountant within the federal government, he retired in 1996 from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration. He received numerous awards for his work and involvement in the community. He was active in many organizations. Even during his younger years, he participated in so many, and there's too many to list, but to name a few: National Association of Accountants, the Drum and Bugle Corps, the San Francisco Bay Area Cultural Group, Holy Angels Canticle Choir, Philam Holy Angels Church and Board of Directors of Educational Committee of Daly City, past president for the Lions Club International, Daly City Dominguez Association of the Northern California, the Elo Circle of San Francisco, Jefferson High School PTSA. He organized it as the first president. TR Policita Middle School PTSA, past Deputy Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus, Our Lady of Beautiful Love, Council 6254, fourth degree honorary life member of St. Francis Assembly, and honorary life member of Holy Angels Council 10498. Antonio loved music. He loved to play his ukulele, sing, and dance. Antonio enjoyed having jam sessions with the ukulele group. He trained in martial arts. He loved to cook, spend time with his friends and family, especially his grandchildren. Antonio enjoyed attending dinner and dance fundraisers. He loved get-togethers to talk story and laugh. He was a man of great leadership, a great listener, always gave good advice, well-respected, loving, understanding, faithful, and lived the Aloha spirit. Also would like to adjourn in memory for Esther Cabral, our office assistant of Department of Water and Wastewater Resources, father-in-law, Enrique Cabral Sr. And also would like to adjourn in memory of Audrey Melbeebs, police records clerk's grandfather, Richard Ratsichi. And also police officer Balon Yee's grandfather, Seer Ping Ying. May we all have a moment of silence.